welcome to the Sharon and Joe Show. My name is Sharon.
My name is Joe.
In today's video, we're going to talk to you about the attitude of gratitude. Joe and I went for a little car ride earlier, and we were talking about what we should do for tonight's video. And we got to speaking about how our lives changed, how everything changed just by changing the way that our thought process was, by appreciating the little things in life and the big things all the way up to God, how that made such a difference in our life. So Joe, let me come right out and ask you, do you have an attitude of gratitude?
I don't know if I have it. It's something that I'm striving for. It's something that I practice consciously daily. It doesn't come natural to a guy like me. I'm not sure why. I could tell you that I don't have a pessimistic attitude. I could tell you I have hope. I could tell you that I was hopeless. There's definitely been a shift in my perspective to where I have goals, that I have many days of peace and tranquility. Other days I have to struggle, but I go through it because it'll pass. Before I was stuck in hell, and I'm not there anymore. And that in itself is a miracle.
I'm going to read a quote from Viktor Frankl. I'm not sure if you know who he is. He is a man, he was a psychiatrist. He survived the Holocaust. He was put in a concentration camp. And in the midst of that horror, he recognized something about himself and about all of humanity. What he said was, everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. That really spoke to Joe and I. It's true. If you control your own mind, if you control your attitude, how you react to things, how you respond, you are truly free. I mean, it is astounding when you really think about what that does for you. You're free in a way that nobody else in the world is. You absolutely have control and power over how you react. Now, that doesn't mean that it's an easy thing to do, but it means that the hope is there. There's that spark for anybody who's in a miserable situation. You control yourself and you own the world. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I agree. That control thing can be elusive. As human beings, my friend said, we can really control nothing, and we're permitted to influence at best. But when you read that quote, and I heard it rings true. There are some things that I have control over, my attitude, and then you had mentioned, and my relationship with God. I mean, those two components to the solution, it's everything that you need. It takes certain steps to get to the attitude. There's a map to follow to get to the point where you could begin to change your attitude. And you mentioned the freedom from our mind. I found later that it wasn't so much the freedom from the narcissist. That was absolutely essential. I was poisoning my body on a daily basis by being around that kind of toxicity. But there was some healing to do with my mind, the obsessive compulsion, just the replaying of the tape in my head, and rewind and play and rewind and play, thinking that they were the only problem when I chose to be abused for 20 years, just so I wouldn't look at my own childhood and what I was trying to fill. And what I found in the end was that I was trying to, there was a God-shaped hole inside of me that needed healing, and I was trying to replace that or fit in like a square peg in a round hole. Like, if it wasn't the narcissist, it was money. It was always something. It took that entanglement with the narcissist to learn that lesson. But in the long run, is how we look at things, our perspective. I should be dead. Like, these vile, disgusting, evil creatures, whatever drives them to do what they do, is far more powerful than me. And it took divine intervention to save me. So in essence, when I look at it that way, I'm a miracle. And I have an obligation to myself to protect and tend to that little kid that was 7 or 8 years old that went through his own trauma. And I have an obligation to my children, but there's a desire. It takes a desire and a willingness to want to, I told myself earlier, there's got to be a better way. I was in a position where I didn't want to live and I didn't want to die. So if I was to live, there had to be a better way than what I was thinking.
Absolutely. I agree completely. When I was with my ex, and I know this is how it is for everybody, I guess I assume there's not joy in the home. There's stress, there's trauma, there's fighting. In my case, my ex would give me lengthy silent treatments. There were times, and my kids saw me do this, I would burst into tears when my ex said he sent me a text telling me he's on his way home. He wouldn't talk to me, but he'd send me a text to let me know he's on his way home. And the stress and the fear, I had, I would burst into tears. So that was the environment that my kids were in. When the entanglement with my ex was done and we weren't together anymore, I made a very conscious effort. I wanted to give my children a gift. And this is a gift. I didn't need money for it. Everybody can do this. Everybody has this in them. It's like what Viktor Frankl said. We have the choice in what type of attitude we have. So I wanted my children to have our home be a happy home, be a joyous home, be a home where there's really love, there's not fear. I want my kids, when they're older, to want to come home to see me. I don't want them to think of the home as a bad place. So I very consciously changed my attitude. So even if I was very unhappy or very depressed, my kids didn't see it. I was happy. I forced myself to have a good attitude. And I'll tell you, when you do that, at first, it's a little bit, you don't feel good and you feel like an actress. But over time, when you consistently do that, you feel better. It's real. It's genuine. Today, now, let me just backtrack for a second. I mentioned before that I grew up outside of Boston, and I used to have a very thick Boston accent. I didn't like it, and I worked hard to get rid of it. But getting rid of the accent was literally every single time I spoke, I had to think ahead what I was going to say next. And it was, my conversations were all very deliberate. And, there was no spontaneity because I had to constantly think about this. Today, I don't think about it at all, to the point where Joe actually asked me to talk to him with my Boston accent, and I couldn't. I have to I almost have to relearn that. It's like that with having a good attitude, also with having gratitude. Those two, are synonymous with each other. They go hand in hand. Over time, at the beginning, when I was doing this for my children, I wanted to do this. It was not as easy. Now it's natural. And Joe, actually, I don't know, Joe, if you remember saying this to me one time. Joe was having a bad day, and he said to me something along the lines of, well, you can't really be happy all the time. And I said to him, that's not true. Every single day. Now, it's not that every moment, but every single day I have real periods of absolute joy. I feel genuine happiness every single day, and that comes 100% from having a good attitude, for being grateful for little things, for it's a sunny day today. That changes everything.
Yeah, and I could attest to that because now that we're together, I see that in you every day. I don't know if I get that. I do know, though, that finding peace and living a drama-free life, there's bits and pieces of joy and pure happiness that I get, but it just, maybe it's my chemical makeup or whatever. It takes work, but I'm willing to do that. I used everything, you guys, from hopelessness. That's what I needed in order to find hope, to reach out to God. The desperation and despair drove my willingness. My ego, waking up in the morning to say, screw this. I'm taking a shower, going to the gym, going to work. I'm not going to let somebody get the best of me. Every little component, all those emotions that I felt, I used as a motivator, a driving engine to just stay alive for one more day, keep one foot in front of the other. But the bottom line for all of our videos and for everything that we say is all those roads lead to God. the most important relationship that I'll ever have is with God. And sometimes, you guys, I think maybe this was God trying to get my attention. And I'm glad that he did, because I definitely see things with a different light.
Yeah, I agree completely. Joe and I have spoken many times where, and I can't imagine, Joe and we just believe, and I still feel weird saying this, but it's what I really feel, that narcissistic abuse is spiritual warfare. When you are involved with a narcissist, you are dealing with pure evil. And the only way that you can fight or beat pure evil is with God. I think anybody who gets out of these entanglements, they get out because of God. It's just, I sometimes, and this comes into being grateful, I can't believe that I am out of the entanglement. Even now, I can't believe it. When I look back, it's almost like I'm a completely different person. But God rescued me. God rescued Joe, any of us. So having that gratefulness, when you think about it just in that way, oh my gosh, like God actually came down from heaven to help get me out of this horrific problem in my life. I was with real evil. And now I'm free. How could I not be grateful? And Joe and I, we actually were speaking a couple months ago, and we were talking about, our divorces and what happens if the worst happens. We lose everything. We're destitute. What are we going to do? How could we possibly be grateful in a situation like that? How could I be happy around my children? And then we realized, you know what? And truly, we feel this way. If that happened, and I did lose my house, I lost my house. If these things happened, and I just to say that when I lost my house, that was actually my worst fear. So many of us, when we're with these things, these demons, our worst fears are knocking at our front door. That's what it does to us. We have to face horror. We have to face hell. But in that, our life can change. Joe said that, God was trying to get his attention. This was like a lesson for him. He thinks that sometimes. I agree, but I feel like, I can be, for some reason, God just can't tap me on the shoulder. He has to smack me across the face. So Joe and I try, who are doing our videos, to not have you need to get smacked across the face. Having a good attitude, cultivating this in your everyday life, it will change everything. And you don't have anything to lose. Having a good attitude, being positive, is never a negative thing.
No, I agree. And, our videos are like kind of like road markers where you're at on the map. I think that every soul has a compass. If you're out there and you're wondering, well, how do I get that attitude? There's certain things you need to do to even get there. God will do the impossible if you do the possible. But we mention that acronym often, the how, the H for honesty. I had to come to terms with my role and my part, allowing myself to be abused, trying to change the narcissist, external validation, the open-mindedness of just asking God for help because I was so desperate, and the willingness to change everything but my name. Pretty much, what was I willing to do to not just be free of the narcissist, but to be free of that, prison in my mind,
Absolutely. And that really is what it is. When you're in a situation like that, it's your mind. You're held hostage by your own mind. So truly, having the strength, finding the strength to be grateful in your everyday life for little things. When I first started cultivating this, I would look around, like I started off thinking of 5 things every day I could be grateful for. And it couldn't be the same things every day. I couldn't keep saying, my kids, my pets, that type of thing. It had to be new things. And over time, at first I would struggle to get 5 things, especially because I couldn't keep repeating, the same things every day and then adding one more thing on. It had to be 5 new things. It got to the point where it was easy, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 25. When you truly think about your life and what you have and what you see, even a pretty flower, seeing, a little rabbit outside, whatever it is, be grateful. And over time, it becomes natural. It becomes who you are. And you'll wake up one day and realize, wow, my life completely changed. I don't even recognize the person that I was anymore.
Yeah, there was a point where I was so obsessed with thinking about the narcissist. When I practiced this, and you mentioned strength, I had none left. For me, in my experience, that strength had to come from God and asking for help and talking and listening. But one day I woke up and I questioned myself. I said, when's the last time that I thought about who she was with, where she was, what she was doing? And it had been many, many, many moons ago. And the obsession was lifted, but it took work to get to that point. So it wasn't like I could use willpower in this. That doesn't happen with spiritual warfare. I could in my life get your butt up, do this, got to do it, push myself. But with the Spirit, God is the strength. And it's like that obsession was just lifted. Just an obsession of like replaying the tapes in my head. How could she have done that? And why does she do this? And the hatred. It was lifted one day. And I tried to think about when it happened or how it happened. I can't pinpoint it. It's just one day it did. I was for many, many months. That's all I could think about. And, it seemed like it took forever to go away, but it happened immediately. Like that obsession, the hatred, the anger, the love, quote unquote love, which was just control. It happened immediately one day. I just didn't think about it, but it seemed like it happened forever over time. But it was just that moment that I had to think about it. I couldn't remember. So God had removed that from me. It wasn't anything I could do on my own. I had no strength left at the end. I was pretty much dying. I had to reach out to God for help. And that's how I rebuilt and rekindled my relationship with Jesus.
This can happen to everybody. Joe and I have an awful lot in common, but we have some differences too. But we've had the same experience with this. I'm going to leave you with a quote by Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He was, speaking of the Holocaust, he was a German theologian who also was held in the concentration camp. But what he said was, in ordinary life, we hardly realize that we receive a great deal more than we give, and that it is only with gratitude that life becomes rich. That is so true. Having a good attitude is never going to let you down, but what it can do, it can change your life. Thank you so much for watching this video and hanging out with Joe and I tonight. Really appreciate it. Joe, will you be back next Monday?
God willing, yes.
Awesome. All right, guys, thank you so much. I will see you on Wednesday by myself, and hopefully Joe will be back with me next Monday. Hope everyone has a great week. God bless.
Guys.